This is the simple version of how to build a sick natural physique, broken down in 3 main phases. Now let's face it, most lifters that are in the gym and will be in the gym for several years are not going to build great physiques and currently don't have great physiques. Now, a lot of that is going to be discipline and consistency and all the boring shit nobody wants to hear about, but oftentimes you combine that with not even understanding which direction to move in, you're basically hopeless. So this is at least going to provide that context. All building a great physique comes down to, if we're going to simplify things here, is adding 25 to 40 pounds of muscle naturally, getting to a lean body fat percentage simultaneously while having this amount of muscle you've built, and making sure that that muscle is built in a proportioned way, in a balanced way, right? Which would obviously mean balanced strength ratios. I mean, if you can only deadlift 3 plates, but you can bench press 4 plates, what the fuck are we really doing here, right? Now, obviously that's going to be extremely rare. So this kind of takes care of itself. If your goal is a better physique, obviously we all know that that typically means good proportions, right? And of course we want health tied into all of this. So balanced strength, you get the point. Elite tier physique, this is all it takes. Now, this is the problem with oversimplification, is that you look at this and you say, okay, simple enough, anybody can achieve this. If it was this simple, well, of course. The reason why this isn't simple is mainly because of this piece right here. You see, a lot of people think, a lot of lifters think, that getting lean is the hard part. That is gen pop, as we call it in the industry, okay? That is to say, general population. That's a general population mentality. Now, general population is not interested in building a better physique, which is why, to the general population, if you're not 40% body fat, you're in decent shape. Now on this channel, and based on, anybody watching my stuff, we hold ourselves to a higher standard in life, especially physically and as a result mentally and otherwise. We hold ourselves to higher standards. We're trying to build superhero physiques, which is possible naturally. So for us, we have to understand that getting lean is the easiest part of this process, because building a better physique always comes down to more muscle mass. Again, assuming this is already taken care of. So if you're struggling to get lean, you're struggling on the easiest part. Building muscle is by far the hardest part. Now, a lot of people think that this is not hard because you can build your first 10 to 15 pounds of muscle by doing a lot of things wrong in the gym. And that also translates to the gen population mindset of, oh, it's 20% exercise, 80% diet. If you believe that, you're cooked, okay? Because it's not the case. It's 20% exercise and 80% diet if you just want to lose some weight on the scale. That's it. Nobody builds a great physique with that mentality. Training is always the priority, always. Because after you get your nutrition dialed in, okay, which you can do by watching my content obviously all over the place, then guess what? There isn't all that much more you can do to further optimize it every single year. Once you really dial in your nutrition once, you're good. You're set for a very long time. You understand how to tweak and adjust things accordingly. It's very simple. Training has to evolve consistently over time. You have to push yourself every single time you're in the gym for years. And every single year that goes by that you build more of this muscle, the harder you have to work for less muscle, right? I work out harder now than I had 2 years ago for achieving way less muscle mass, right? This part is way harder because even though you can build the first 10 to 15 pounds of muscle, not all that difficult, without all that much effort, without really having to worry about volume, frequency, and all this other stuff, which is hilarious because these days, the fitness industry, specifically lifters, science-based and all that stuff, they're like hyper optimizing. They haven't even built their first 15 pounds of muscle. They have no clue what they're doing, and they'll find out the hard way, unfortunately. But after you build those first 10 to 15 pounds, you're not going to build the next 5, 10, 15 pounds. And unfortunately, for those individuals, it's those next 5, 10, 15 pounds that actually make you look impressive. Anybody can build the first 10 pounds and it's not going to look crazy. It's going to look a lot better than when you first started, of course, and you didn't have those 10 pounds of muscle, let's say. It's going to be a significant transformation, sure, but you're not going to get the physique you want with the first 10 pounds that you built nearly by accident. Right? So training is going to be what gets you all the way up to the level of muscle mass that actually creates those superhero natural physiques that you see and that you want if you watch my channel. Okay, getting to this point is where we start to look at numbers like FFMI. FFMI stands for Fat Free Mass Index. Okay, let me just make sure that we understand FFMI. if you go online and you type in FFMI calculator, okay, first one that pops up, you're gonna see something that gives you a range of whatever, 0 to 40 FFMI or 30 FFMI, whatever. So from there, if you look at elite natural physiques, they're always going to fall as a male somewhere within the 24 to 26 FFMI category, 26 being essentially genetic outliers that have mastered everything for the last 15, 20 years, okay? 24 being on the high end of somebody with probably average, maybe even sub-average genetics that has done everything correctly for the next 10 years. This is the FFMI you want to get to, okay? And you'll figure out, according to your height, what that looks like as far as how much weight you're going to have on your frame and at what body fat percentage. You need to get up to that. Now, as a woman, it's going to be closer to 22 to 23, 23 and a half FFMI, okay? So this is what we're focusing on. This is the easy part. We're going to get this over with. First and foremost, build the skill of doing that. No problem. It'll lead to your physique. Now we go into the 3 different phases that actually help us achieve this. Phase number 1, get lean once, never get fat again. Now, the last video I just posted on my YouTube channel does go into this process as well, okay? So if you've seen that last video, this might seem a little bit redundant, but obviously I'm going into a little bit more nuance, depth, and detail here, and hopefully helping you understand the specific phases themselves properly. Not just going through all the training you should be doing and all that stuff. That's in my previous video. Check that out if you haven't yet. Get lean once, never get fat again. As the name implies, okay, get lean once, you need to get that first cut over with. So people always ask, hey, I'm skinny fat, or hey, you know, my body fat is maybe 20% as a man, 30% as a woman. Should I bulk? I've been cutting for a while. What should I do here? Should I recomp? You should cut. Cut to get to your baseline body fat percentage, which is going to be somewhere around 10% body fat as a man and 20% body fat as a woman, give or take. So you could say 18 to 22% here, 8 to 12% here, okay? You're going to cut to this baseline and capture it. You need to understand how to get lean first, because remember, that's the easy fucking part. All right. Now, as you're getting lean, assuming you do all the other things correctly, or if you haven't built those first 10 pounds of muscle, you're going to build that anyways just by training regularly. You will build muscle as you get lean. Okay. So you don't have to worry about gaining maximum muscle right now. You need to worry about getting lean and building what muscle you can during that process. Now, you cut to this baseline body fat. This may take a long time for you. It may already have been taking a long time. Maybe you've been trying to do this for a while. It's been 8 months I've been cutting. Listen, you're not locked in. It's as simple as that. It's taking 8 months. You either haven't consumed the right content, which would be mine in this case, right? There's plenty of other credible sources out there. But I mean, I have the predictable guaranteed formula on all my content as to how to set your macros, all that stuff. We're not covering that in this video. Check the previous one, if anything, or the other ones. You're going to cut to this. You haven't gotten there, and you've been cutting for 8 months, and you can't lose the last 10. Well, I've got videos covering that specifically as well. But it's really just coming down to you're not being consistent enough. Your nutrition composition sucks, okay? You need to get the skill of getting lean, first and foremost. You're gonna lose 0.5 to 1% of your body weight on average per week. That's a standard rate in which you can still build muscle in the process of losing fat. And you won't run into a huge wall of diet fatigue. You're going to improve your diet quality during this process. Diet quality. I can't tell you. 9.99 out of 100 people that come to me, and a lot of those people being pretty serious tracking and all that have diet fatigue issues, that wonder why it's such a struggle for them to get lean once that first time, is because they're drinking 2 protein shakes a day. They eat things that only come out of packages, okay? Their oatmeal is only the maple and brown sugar flavored oatmeal, which, don't get me wrong, fucking delicious. I'll have that myself sometimes. But to think that that is a healthy diet, I look at their food logs, I am astonished not to see vegetables and fruits in there regularly in large quantities. Astonished. Do you understand? Vegetables. First of all, let's understand something. Me, of all fucking people, for me to use my platform to tell people to eat more vegetables is absolutely absurd, because I am the last person that should be having to do this. But and I'll tell you why. You look at all my content way back in the day, you'll see I was these people. No fucking wonder it sucked to try to get shredded. No wonder I lost muscle even when I was more advanced trying to get lean, because my diet composition sucked. I ran into diet fatigue and I just willpowered my way through because my hunger tolerance is higher than most people. But now Even I, of all people, the guy who hated vegetables and fruit more than anybody, who had to drench his meals in teriyaki sauce just to make it somewhat edible, I came to the conclusion myself, after enough banging my head against the wall, to know vegetables and fruits are absolutely mandatory if your goal is the best possible results. And especially if you're trying to get lean, if your goal is to actually manage diet fatigue properly. So stop fucking around. Multiple cups of vegetables per day. Stop eating everything out of a package. Batch cook your meals up. 1 to 2 hours, 1 to 2 times a week, or rather 1 to 2 hours every 1 or every other week is all that's required. Batch cook your lean protein source. You cook up egg whites in the morning instead of your fucking protein shake. You add some vegetables in there. You take all those little bullshit carb sources, those granola bars, replace it with fruit. I promise you right off the bat, you're improving diet quality. You're improving the skill of understanding it's more than just calories and protein to get to this point. Okay, so you get to this point, you improve diet quality, you gain the skill of getting lean once, because again, that's the easy part. You set up your tracking system. Now, at this point, you should be dialing in a tracking system where you track your body weight every single day, first thing in the morning, before eating or drinking anything. After using the restroom, you plug that either into something like Happy Scale to churn out a weekly moving average, which is what I do currently. But what I did, and you can see the content on the channel from that as well, for years, was I would just write it down. Okay, write it down, and then I had all the visual, I could see my weekly average weight changing. That changed the game for me and everybody that I coach or tell this to that actually applies it. You're gonna track your training sessions daily. Now, if you want a free tracking system that I've given to well over 11,000 people at this point that have signed up for it, my free physique bundle linked in the bio. My free, sorry, this isn't free, but my physique accelerator is another thing you can check out, linked in the bio. If you want me to set things up for you right away, that includes a complete streamlined tracking system in one app that aggregates everything. That's gonna make things a little easier. But if you want the free system, by all means, a link in the bio, just toss me your email and I'll send that over to you. That's gonna help you set this all up. That includes tracking your training sessions, okay? Gravitas is the one I recommend. I've been using it since 2019. Code JMangoFit for that. That's gonna help you track your lifts so you can realize progressive overload. Very important if you wanna grow muscle during the process of getting lean. You wanna track your nutrition daily. That's pretty simple. MyFitnessPal, MacroFactor, whatever else, okay? That's gonna be big, a chronometer, etc. You want to track your progress photos and measurements every 4 weeks, roughly. Now, you have that system streamlined, set up. That's going to make seeing results and getting as lean as you want while optimizing diet quality and all the rest much easier. Okay, so if you don't have your tracking system set up yet and you're struggling to do this, set that up. You're going to struggle a lot less. You're finally going to get this part over with. So again, link in the bio or link in the description down below. Now, once you finally finish phase 1, which, like I said, it may take a while. I don't care. Make it take as long as it needs to take for you to reach the goal. All right, I've been cutting for a while, but I'm struggling. I'm at 15% body fat as a man. Well, if you start the bulk too soon, then you don't really have much leeway to stay in a surplus. Sure, you can stay at maintenance for a long period of time, but you still have to go through a cut eventually anyways if you want to look impressive. So you might as well just acquire that skill now, and you'll be in a better position to then reverse that and bulk up from there. We move to phase 2, which means I'm going to move to this side. Now, phase 2 is the gaining phase, all right? The gaining phase, I generally recommend, will take about 12 months, okay? Like that's usually a good timeline for a proper gaining phase, but it could be as low as 6 months. Keep in mind, if you're only doing 6 months, you're not going to grow as much muscle. Muscle takes time to grow, and you can't force feed more than the literal, the rate limiting step of muscle growth won't be force fed by eating more food. You're just going to gain more fat at the same time, right? So you can't force feed it. The longer you stay in a well-fed gaining phase, the more muscle you build in a shorter period of time, essentially. Because if you bulk for 6 months, cut for 3, bulk for 6, cut for 3, well, over that 18-month span, that's going to be slightly more, but you get the point. Over 18 months, this person that just stayed in a gaining phase and did it properly will have built more muscle and only needs 1 cut, and they're good, okay? You want to spend as much time in a well-fed state as possible once you get lean. Now, this does mean you're going to gain some fat. Let's go into this a little bit more. So maximize muscle and performance without excess fat gain. That's the goal here, but it didn't say without any fat gain. You have to gain some body fat. I mean, you don't have to, I guess, if you didn't cut all that lean. You could stay at maintenance. You're holding yourself back. If you're a beginner or early intermediate, you can still gain muscle relatively rapidly. You're better off maximizing that potential with a slight surplus. Now, some body fat may accumulate, but not much if you do things properly. So dial in your training. Training becomes the number one focus in phase 2 here, whereas the scale becomes a bit more of a number one focus when you're cutting. Training becomes number one, and then scale becomes secondary on a gain phase, okay? You're gonna aim to gain somewhere between 0.5 and 1.5% of your body weight every single month on average. Notice this is significantly slower than the loss rate of a cut because we can lose fat a lot faster than we build muscle, right? So keep in mind the 0.5% of your body weight. For me, at 215 pounds currently, this would mean what is that, 1 pound roughly, right? 1 pound per month gained. That's very slow. That's an average of a quarter pound per week. That's very, very slow. And to be honest, the more advanced you become, not only do you slide over towards the slower gain rate, there are many months where I'm not gaining anything. It becomes a lot more of a push-pull and you're focusing more on stop losses, which I'll mention in a sec. But the more early on you are, which is probably more of you guys watching this video, you can go a little bit on the faster rate. 1 to 1.5% of your total body weight gain per month is probably acceptable, assuming you're training properly, which of course, watch my other videos to make sure you're doing that. Stop losses is the key to staying tight on a gain phase, to making sure that whatever fat you do gain is productive and it's not sending you over with no added benefit. So for example, some stop losses is 15 to 18% body fat as a man. So abs are faded completely, you've gone too far. Pull it back a little bit. I'm not saying you need shredded abs the whole time, but if you don't see your abs at all, you're 20+% body fat, you fucked up. All right, time to pull it back a bit at the very least. 25 to 28% body fat as a woman, okay? These are examples of stop losses. Now, you may prefer 20% body fat. That's up to you. You have to experiment to some degree for yourself. I personally have not seen, based on my experience and observation and my own personal anecdote of doing it myself, that over 15 to 18% is exactly necessary or further more productive on top of these body fat percentages to maximize more growth. Same thing with the women here. Waist and visuals. So obviously visually, that's how we're going to determine the body fat to some degree, but also waistline. Like, one thing that I've been doing to keep this bulk in check, and this is probably my most successful bulk of all time so far, what I've been doing is I'll fasted waist, measure my waist in the mornings sometimes. I don't really care what the scale says because, again, that's secondary. I gain a little. That's that. Like some days, there's been a time where I gained 3 pounds overnight, or my weekly average went up a little fast that week by 1.5 pounds in a single week. Right? This happens. So we're not going to be perfect. But my waist is in check. My lifts are, everything's looking good. So stop losses matter more, okay? If the weight isn't going up, but my waist is, you're really fucking things up. But you get the point, like, that's a problem. Your waist should not be increasing over the span of a bulk rapidly as you gain small amounts of weight. So you're gonna set these stop losses, okay? For example, for me, if I get to 34 inches on my waist, I slow things down. I may even peel it back a tiny bit. I don't have to go into a full-blown deficit. It's not necessary. I peel it back a bit. That way you still stay lean and keep maximizing performance. So stop losses is what you want to do to keep yourself in check here. Scale becomes secondary, and that means that some months you go without gaining really much of anything. Maybe you gained half a pound from 1 month to the next. It doesn't mean that you're not still building a ton of muscle. If your training is on point and your recovery is good and everything else is looking good, you're feeling performing your best. Look, that's better than gaining at a faster rate and feeling performing the same. I mean, okay, just extra body fat maybe. So it's not a race to gain as much as you can on a lean gain phase. Take it from the guy who did enough dirty bulks to find this out the hard way. All right. So this is the gain phase. Let's say you do it for 12 months. You can go longer than this, okay? Going 6 months or less than 6 months, it's not gonna be all that productive whatsoever, okay? Basically just a waste of time. By the time your body is maxed out in hormone balance, in finally building some momentum and building some lean tissue, boom, you go back into a deficit. Okay, that gets halted basically immediately. What the fuck was the point of that, right? You're better off even just staying at maintenance for 6 months. Okay, at least that way you don't have to cut after that. You can just stay at maintenance for 12 months. It's better than bulking rapidly for 4 months and cutting for 2 months and bulking for 1. Doesn't make sense, okay? Bulks need to be long drawn out, and they need to be you need to be very disciplined to execute this properly. And in fact, lean gaining over time, especially because your gain rate goes slower and slower, typically requires more discipline in many ways than a cutting phase does. That said, once you do this, you've now built a ton of muscle on top of your initial baseline, which you captured, okay? Meaning progress photos, all that stuff, maybe a photo shoot. That's something I like to do all the time. You go to phase 3, which is another standard cut this time, but there's a difference. It's not going to be, oh, it might be 8 months this time. No, it shouldn't be any longer than 2 to 4 months because you didn't let yourself go above a certain body fat percentage here, right? So now you just have to peel back a little bit, that little layer of fat that you added. 2 to 4 months, you have the initial skill of getting lean the first time. You're going to be better at it this time because each time you do it, you improve that skill. And you're going to have more muscle this time, so you probably get to a higher body weight at the same body fat percentage or the same body weight at a lower body fat percentage, either or. And you're going to look significantly better. You're going to capture that and see the progress you made from here to here. Okay, again, this is a year, let's say a year goes by. You absolutely dialed the fuck in. You gained 10 to 15 pounds of muscle. You get a lot closer to this goal now, right? You do this again, so here's what you do. You standard cut, let's just briefly walk through this, okay? Back to the baseline with more muscle. You're gonna improve the skill of doing this. You're gonna have less diet fatigue as a result of that, and there's not gonna be much to lose. You're just gonna look significantly better than last time. Now, you're just gonna repeat phase 2, phase 3. Phase 2, phase 3, again, each time you get more advanced, you put more muscle on, it becomes harder to put even more on, as we mentioned at the beginning. So this gain phase starts taking, you gain less and less weight each time, or you gain similar amounts of weight over a longer period of time, right? Because the muscle growth is slower and slower, so you gain at a much slower rate. You gain 10 pounds of muscle, but it took you 2 years this time. It's only an average of 5 pounds per year, which, by the way, is massive because not only is every pound of muscle you gain harder to gain versus the previous pound, but the good news in that is that every pound of muscle you gain on top of the previous one makes an exponentially positive difference on your physique. So right now, if I had 5 pounds of muscle, it's going to be a noticeable change to my entire physique that's going to exponentially elevate me to top 1 or top 5% levels, whatever you want to call it. Whereas a beginner who adds 5 pounds of muscle, you're still going to look like a fucking beginner. You get the point, okay? So that's what we're going to do here. And then from here, you're simply going to come back to phase 2 each time. This is going to require you to go a little bit slower. Maybe now you generally, a rule of thumb, if you're doing everything correctly, each year you might be able to put on maybe half the muscle you put on the prior year, though it's not always that linear, obviously. Like I've put on 10 pounds in the last year of my bulk, but there's different context there. Like I had lost a decent amount of muscle for other reasons I'll be covering in my next video. It's going to be more of a personal update. So, there's different scenarios. Training finally got dialed in a way that it wasn't for years prior. When I lost the muscle, injuries that occurred, now I don't have those injuries. I recovered from them. I'm seeing massive momentum. Hormones are in the best spot ever. Stress is lower. All these other factors need to be considered to where, 1 year of gaining may be better than another, even though that year is way later and you're more advanced, right? Because again, every time you go through a gain phase, you also learn more about your body and you improve the skill of this. Go back, you improve the skill of that. Go back, go back, go back. Next thing you know, you're in a position similar to mine where I gain, I've been in a well-fed state, gaining state for 1.5 years total, and only one tiny cut, 0 diet fatigue throughout that, and I stay lean and I just keep gaining, getting stronger, performing better, feeling better, and am ultimately at my healthiest ever. So this is what you want to do, and over time, it's just a repetition of doing this. Now, this is why this takes multiple years, okay? So if you think, I put it up here, repeat this 2 to 4 times, and you're gonna be significantly closer to this target, okay? Now, a lot of people will take 2 to 4 years, okay? Or 2 to 4 times of this is like maybe 5 to 10 years, just to start doing these things correctly. Oftentimes, people will take 4 years just to start properly here and move down this. Okay, the amount of times I see somebody, they're like, yeah, and they walk me through their journey so far. They've been lifting 4 years and they don't look nearly as good as they could because they, last 4 years, yeah, I got to cut again now. And then they cut, and then I see them months later and they're like, yeah, I cut and I had a vacation, I let myself go. And, now I'm thinking I'm going to cut again or hold here. They never get clear on an outcome. They never get clear on a roadmap as to where they're going next and for how long. And then even if they did come up with that, they're not disciplined enough to stick to it. Oh, vacation came up, gained 15 pounds. Now I don't really know what to do. You fucked up, okay? That's what happened. And if you fuck it up, you're gonna revert all the way back to phase 1, which is the easiest phase. It's the easiest. People say, oh, phase 1 is the hardest phase. I don't see how it's the hardest phase, okay? When you go through this enough times, you realize that phase 1 is the easiest phase. You just weren't locked in. The only reason phase 1 appears difficult is because you don't quite yet understand the level of consistency and detail, attention to detail that it requires to simply get leaner than most people, let alone build a sick physique, build a ton of muscle on top of getting lean. Let's face it, just getting to 10% body fat as a man, you're in the top 10% of all men ever physique-wise. Yeah, but you want to get to the top 1%, you want to actually look impressive amongst above average people and build an impressive physique, you now need to build 25 to 40 pounds of muscle on top of being that lean. That's going to take several years. And women, same thing, closer to the 25-pound mark, right? So that's the process. I hope this makes sense, and I hope that you found this helpful. Like I said, maybe a little redundant over the last video. If you like this style of video, where I'm not editing it, I can probably upload this to the podcast as well. You like this longer form video, non-edited, raw, real, maybe a bunch of extra yapping and repeating myself, let me know in the comments. If you prefer the shorter edited scripted videos like the previous one or the ones prior to that for a little while, let me know. I am planning on just doing more raw, uncut videos like this so that I can actually upload them more frequently. And you know, that can include Q&As and stuff. So if you have specific questions, feel free to drop those in the comments, and I'd be happy to answer those in more long form style videos like this. So yeah, hope that you found this helpful. Make sure to follow my TikTok if you want other types of content on there, more medium form. Make sure to follow my Instagram. You can DM me on my Instagram, but honestly, at the moment, my DMs are an absolute joke. They're destroyed. So I have to prioritize clients, members, all that stuff first and foremost. That being said, last thing I'll say, one more plug, is the Physique Accelerator linked in my bio. I'll build everything out for you, and you'll get priority access to me on that, as well as my community and all the rest. Link is in the description. Hope that you found this helpful. Any other topics you want to see next, let me know, and I will add that to the queue of the content, because now that I'm going to make more long form unedited, assuming you guys like this. If I get a lot of comments talking about, no, this style of content, I don't really like it. I would prefer shorter, more hyper edited, scripted content, then I'll revert back to that, though it will be less frequently uploaded. Or maybe I'll just do a combination of both, because I also just do what the fuck I want. All right, hope you guys found this helpful. Like I said, for the 15th time, I will see you guys in the next one, and I'll see you at the top.